Well, political analyst Khanyi Magubane joins us now to weigh in on these latest developments between the ANC as well as the DA pertaining to the GNU as well as the budget. Khanyi, a very good afternoon. Great to have you with us. Welcome. So the ANC NWC has given its first briefing on some of those discussions that are, of course, taking place behind closed doors. So what is your general assessment of their report back on the current developments, particularly, the SG going very deep in on the DA's behavior within the GNU? You've just heard John Steenhuisen there saying, no, it's not themselves that have gone outside the scope of their mandate to consult outside of the GNU as prescribed in the statement of intent.
Thank you very much. I think that, first of all, for me, it's quite alarming that a national ruling arrangement such as the GNU is currently only being held together by a statement of intent. I think that in the time that it was constituted and up until now, we actually should have had some promulgations of official laws that can actually govern the ruling or the running operationally of the GNU. But coming to the statement or coming to the briefing of the SG Fikile Mbalula, I think that it was quite sober-minded, and he wasn't very emotional, but he was very clear, and he actually said some very damning things against the DA, as you've alluded to, that they've undermined the power sharing arrangement. They've lied to South Africans. They've constantly taken credit for work that didn't even start in this administration. And of course, we may have seen on social media the DA constantly referring to its ministers within the GNU cabinet as DA minister, a DA victory. And this, of course, is them creating an identity within the GNU, creating the impression that the DA gets things done. Now, I think the DA is also having a sober-minded moment, because SG was very clear that if they are saying that they are not going to negotiate further on this impasse, they have a right to leave, and should they leave, the ANC is going to hit the reset button and go into negotiations with other parties. And I can assure you there are many parties waiting in the wings who've been waiting for this moment. Parties like the EFF, like BUSA, like Action SA, they know that this is the time that they could possibly get into the GNU, and the DA knows this. They know that for them to leave, they will be replaced almost immediately. So they know that they have a vested interest in eating humble pie where they have to, but they also need to realize this is bigger than a budget impasse. Their ministers in cabinet will leave if they leave as well.
According to earlier reports, Khanyi, the SG there of the ANC Fikile Mbalula was actually supposed to announce decisions of the GNU going forward since the tiffs with the DA. But that's not what we heard earlier, right? There was no outward announcement of what the future of the DA and the ANC within the coalition is, and still no report back from the DA's FedEx, by the way. So we're now being referred back to that earlier statement of intent that we discussed earlier. But it's been days already. Can a decision be taken and South Africans be notified?
Well, I think these decisions are not decisions to be made lightly, and they do take time because of the consultative nature of these decisions that have to be taken. If the DA should leave the GNU, of course, the markets are going to react. The international community is going to react. Geopolitically, we know that South Africa is facing a very difficult moment with its relations with the US being at its poorest, perhaps, in the past 30 years since our democracy. Our relations with the US have been relatively stable up until now. And so I think the Democratic Alliance needs to actually think about the fact that, yes, they may be in a GNU because they did not receive an outward majority. The ANC didn't receive an outward majority. But like the SG was saying, that in terms of numbers, the ANC is still a bigger party. And within the GNU, they're going to have a bigger say. So the question is this the right approach? Is this the way we slice the pie, to say that those with more voters only get that much of a say? If that is the approach, then we will consistently come back, to issues that put them at loggerheads with each other. We've already had NHI, Bila, the Land Claim Amendments Act, and now we have issues of the budget. Can we be at a point where we can agree to disagree without necessarily threatening to walk out the door? That is the question.
You know, Khanyi, I'm afraid I will have to take you back to this question about the current confusion as well on the understanding of the issue of the budget being passed. Some parties still believe it was provisional until, of course, they are consulted on the recommendations to find this missing revenue and report back within 30 days before the implementation of the budget come 1st of May. While some believe that the budget has since been passed and there's no turning back, with the latest reports alleging that Action SA's Herman Mashaba says his party will not entertain any invitation to join the GNU until the current impasse of the VAT is actually resolved.
Well, I think ordinary South Africans might have already received notifications from their banks, from their insurance, from all the financial institutions where we pay monthly installments. I know I have, and you possibly have. And that speaks to a finality of sorts. The banks wouldn't be advising their clients that there's going to be changes, you know, in monies being withdrawn or being debited from their accounts if it wasn't final. However, we don't have that statement that says the budget is final. We have John Steenhuisen saying that was a fiscal framework that Finance Minister Enoch Godongwane presented in Parliament. It still needed to be debated and adopted. And until, you know, we get to that point where we can release a final statement, then the ANC was premature, you know, in perhaps giving an impression that it was. And Fikile Mbalula himself today didn't really give us a clear indication of whether this budget is passed or not, because he says that the DA voiced their dissatisfaction, and they've said to them, if you're unhappy about this, decide if you want to go or you want to stay. So, Natasha, we really are in murky waters right now where we're not really clear, but the indications are that it has been passed because financial institutions are already implementing the implications of that increase.
Very interesting indeed. Khanyi, thank you so much for your input this afternoon. Khanyi Magubane is a political analyst weighing in there on the ANC's NWC meeting. Report back on the future of the government of national unity.